Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ben Pevin. I'm on the product marketing team here at Sentry. And today we're going to cover the basics of backend error monitoring. Kosi, if you could go to the next slide. So before we get started, be sure to introduce yourself in the chat, share where you're joining us from, and maybe what company you work at, and also maybe even your latest TV show binge. Mine is The Righteous Gemstones on Max. I love it. Kosti, you can go to the next slide. So your presenters today are Kosti on the sales engineering team, and Kosti is going to be walking us through how to set up a backend project using a FastAPI project example. He's going to cover data that's available on the issue details page, like the stack trace, stack locals, and how to associate a release to your errors in Sentry. He's also going to cover some best practices on alerting. After Kosi covers the basics of backend error monitoring, Aran from the product management team is going to take over and share some exciting updates that he's been working on to improve the issue experience team that is ultimately going to help you understand what to prioritize faster. And please be sure to engage with us throughout the presentation in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat to answer any questions you have. And at the end, if we don't get to your question in the chat, we'll be sure to leave it for Q&A at the end of the presentation, which will be for about 10 minutes at the end. So all in all, this presentation is going to take 30 minutes, but we will be doing the demo for the first 20 minutes of the presentation. And with that, Kosti, please take it away.
Thank you, Ben. Great intro. Let me share the screen in a little different way. So like Ben said, we're going to show instrumenting Sentry for the backend using a Python example, in this case, a simple FastAPI app. If you haven't heard of FastAPI, it's just one of the modern frameworks for building APIs in Python. It's really easy to use. And here's the hello world, basically taken straight from their website. We have two paths, one that shows hello world, another one that just echoes your query parameters back at you. So what I'm going to do, I will test this right here in my browser. For that, I would need to run it. There we go. So we got this running on a local host. And if I refresh this, I get my query parameters echoed right back at me. So, well, let's make it a little more interesting. In my editor here, I'm just going to add a random error. Let's do the favorite, the crowd pleaser divided by 1 by 0, and see what happens, right? So as I reload this page, of course, I get internal server error. You guys have seen this many times in your own life, and what you have to do, you have to figure out which box in the cloud this thing is running on, figure out where logs go, search through the logs, find this particular request. Well, it's a painful process. So let's see how Sentry can help us understand what happened. The first thing to get started with Sentry is you simply go to sentry.io. Here, I click on Getting Started button, and this takes me to the sign-up flow. I'm going to create some random org and put in my email. I'm going to put in Gmail and put my most secure password, test12345. So let's see what happens now. As you guys might have noticed, at no point you are asked for a credit card. We do, of course, eventually want your credit card, but not right now. You get 14 days of free trial of our business plan, which is basically the full-fledged plan. And after 14 days, you're not going to be cut off. You still get our basic developer plan, which is very limited, but you can still, it's usable. You can get your errors show up in Sentry. So if I click Start, this is going to take me to this very easy to use onboarding flow. I simply have to pick my platform, in this case, FastAPI. or we support like a dozen different Python backend platforms and any other language really. And click Configure SDK. I immediately get this code snippet here. The first thing I have to do is, of course, install the required package. Here, I would need to modify this to use pip3 because that's the binary that I have on my system. That's it. And then here is the actual code snippet. You might notice the string here. This is essentially your API key combined with your project ID and your account ID in one string. So you don't have to copy two strings. That's very convenient. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this whole section, go back to my terminal, and paste it at the very beginning of this program, because I want, if something goes wrong on this line, when I initialize FastAPI, I want it to be captured. That's why I want to initialize Sentry SDK as soon as possible. You might notice we have traces sample rate set here. This enables performance. You don't need to use performance, but it's a great set of features if you want to understand why your backend requests are slow or taking too much resources. That's something to look at. But for right now, we're going to focus on errors in this particular webinar. I'm going to save this file. Uvicorn is going to automatically hot reload it. And I'm going to go back to the browser and see here, there's this waiting for error banner. This means that Sentry, actually, this onboarding process is waiting for the first error to arrive. So to trigger that, I simply go to this tab and reload it again. And now, yeah. We just got it. So it shows error received. That's it. You're all set up. Now I click this button, and this takes me to what's called issue page. Issue is a collection of errors with the same stack trace, exception type, and message, potentially. Those things can be customized how Sentry does grouping. We have very advanced controls and algorithms for that. So here's what you get with this most basic minimal setup. You already capture lots of tags like information about your environment, the timing of the event, when it was first seen, etc. Of course, you care about the stack trace. Here it is. We automatically fetch the code context, so we show the surrounding lines, not just the line that's erroring. And what's most important, here are the stack local variables. And their values are displayed for you. And Sentry will display not just simple values, but actual structures and objects as well. Bear in mind that in a real application, you would probably want to redact or do data scrubbing to remove any sensitive information. And Sentry has very easy to use extensive data scrubbing controls, which you can use to eliminate any sensitive information in your stack locals or requests for that matter, because Sentry will show you the request information. If it had a data payload, it would show it here as well. You can view it as a curl command if you want to reproduce it. It's super easy. And then finally, we have something called breadcrumbs. And here you only see one of them. Breadcrumbs are events that happen leading up to the error within the same request. So essentially, it's logging 2.0 sort of. It's just much easier to use because you don't have to parse through those logs and aggregate all those other entries that lead up to the error. Sentry will automatically show them to you. And this is what you get automatically through auto instrumentation. Of course, you can get much more if you add some custom data, and Sentry gives you an API to do that. Let's take, for example, a look again at our application here. And I have this logger statement here, everything is fine. Well, actually, let's convert this into an equivalent Sentry statement to add a breadcrumb. And that would look something like this. So we set a category logger to distinguish it from other automatic breadcrumbs, and message and level. What I can also do is add a custom tag as well. For that, I use set tag, and tags are arbitrary key value pairs. It's really your imagination is the limit. Lots of the time, people will use them for things like feature flags, for information about your deployment, for example, a region. And here, let's say I'm going to add a tag, whether we're using the legacy API, and I'll set the value to true because it's a string pair. I've just updated my code. I will reload this page over again. So it throws another error, but now it added this extra bits of data to be visible in Sentry. And within a couple of seconds, this propagates to Sentry. I reload this page, and I will see this custom tag right here is set to true. And if I scroll down to breadcrumbs, I will see everything is fine. Of course, it always is. So that's just how easy it is to add extra bits of information to all of your requests. And this will, you don't have to set it for every single error. As long as you set it in the beginning of request, any error that happens will be caught and reported here. Now, another useful thing is understanding what release your error first happened in. Here, it actually showed me the commit hash. Normally, you would not have your Git repository in your production environment, so you'd have to set that manually. Well, not manually, but through code, through actually writing a bit of code. Let's see how that's done. To do that, when I initialize my Sentry SDK, I simply have to put in one line here, release equals. And I will put something in this format, my app, which is called the package name at 1.0.0. And this my app part is important kind of in a way that Sentry requires it to understand your release string correctly. But that's really all you have to do. So this will tag every error that happens in this request with this particular release. And we can demonstrate that again. Got a little lost in the tabs here. And so this should probably have the latest one. There we go. So the release is latest. Now, there's even better way of telling Sentry about releases that not just tags event with releases, but also tells Sentry what are the timestamps of each releases, because your events can arrive in any arbitrary order. But if you use Sentry CLI or any of the plugins we have for different frameworks to tell Sentry about releases, first it will associate what commits are associated with this release, and it will also know what is the creation date of that release, and that will allow it to manipulate that release better and to sort it better and understand which release comes before the other one. And in order to do that, you would have to use Sentry CLI. We probably don't have a lot of time to go through this right now, but what you might want to look is Sentry docs CLI. And here we'll have an installation step, which is very simple. You just have a downloader script that installs it. And then finally, you have to configure and authenticate it by calling Sentry CLI login or creating a what's called an internal integration in Sentry just for the purpose of creating an API key and then plugging it into your Sentry CLI. And finally, what you would do in your command line is call something like something similar to this, where you specify the name of the new release, you put the name of your org, the name of your project. In this case, that's the automatic name that the project was given. And this will tell Sentry that this is the new release and will tell you that there are commits that are associated with it. So now we've seen how an error shows up in Sentry, how Sentry aggregates multiple errors into one issue. Now I would like to show you how you actually find out about these things. And for that, you need to set up alerting. Alerting works it's pretty straightforward. We already have an alert set up automatically as part of the onboarding flow, but I'm going to go into it and modify it. An error type alert is actually very simple. You simply specify the initial condition, like in this case, a new issue is created. I can replace that, for example, with the number of unique users affected by an issue is, greater than 10 in 1 hour, or maybe I want to set number of users affected is greater than the same value, a week ago by a certain percentage point. So it's very flexible, allows you to essentially detect anomalies. And finally, I can set conditions. For example, remember we set that tag, and the tag was, I believe, is legacy API. So, and if it contains true, this alert will only fire off if it has this custom tag. So that's the huge power of tags that Sentry has. And finally, you can send the alert either to a particular team, suggested assignees based on Sentry's analysis of the line of code in code owner's file, or you can just specify a particular member, and this will email me by default. You can, of course, use Slack integration, PagerDuty integration. We support all kinds of channels. And that's how you set up alerts in Sentry. And the final thing I would like to show is, as you've noticed, we've looked at just one error in isolation, right? It's just your backend application, but in a real-world project, you would experience something a little different because you would have your front end call into your backend, or maybe there's some other backend. There's a whole chain and a call tree, how your front-end request propagates into your backend services, and an error can happen anywhere within that graph. So what Sentry allows you to do is called distributed tracing, and that's essentially this ability to track requests as they flow through your infrastructure and through your different service endpoints. If you have the latest SDK, distributed tracing works right out of the box. You really don't have to do anything. As long as you have Sentry in each of your services and the front end as well, it will work automatically. Sentry will use certain HTTP headers. On the front end, you probably need to verify that your course configuration allows those headers, your proxy doesn't strip any headers, things like this. Maybe set propagation targets so we don't send those headers to some random third-party APIs. But other than those little details, there's really nothing you need to set up as long as you have Sentry set up in every single one of your services. And the way it manifests itself in an issue, and this is an error issue that is fully configured. As you can tell, it has proper semantic version releases set up here. It has this frequency graphs. It has the tag distributions, for example, by browser, etc. It even has code coverage information here through CodeCov. But the most important thing here is this parent batch here. This points me to the error that happened upstream as a result of this error. If I click here, I go from my Python backend issue into my JavaScript issue. And it has its own stack trace because it's essentially looked at the response and so it was not okay and threw a generic 500 error. But now you can track these two and connect one to the other. Moreover, if you're not sure whether your backend error is actually of significance or is it just noise, you can go back to your front-end application and look at the session replay, which is a video-like reproduction of the actual customer session. You can look at the trace, which will show the sequence of all the front-end and back-end requests that happened as a result. And these flame icons, they indicate errors that have happened. In this case, there is probably somewhere my Python error is right here. It happened when I was loading the products page. And you see this huge timeline. It's a very powerful feature. Unfortunately, we don't have time for this right now, but I just wanted to highlight it that that's something that Sentry has. Now, so far, we've looked at just one error type. Of course, you're going to have lots of different error types. And the way you examine all of your currently occurring errors is in the issue stream right here. I'm filtering by project. So I see two of these. You could actually select multiple. You can select view both projects at the same time. And this is a very powerful interface to search, query, and explore your data. And at this point, I want to give a microphone to Iran, who's the product manager for issues generally. And Iran will show you what you can do in terms of workflow, in terms of managing your issues. And I will stop sharing the screen so we can switch over a little bit.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Can you see my screen? Cool. So good day, everyone. I'm Iran, Director of Product Management here at Sentry. Thank Kosti for the demo introduction. Today, I'm going to provide you a sneak peek at the evolution of issues at Sentry and how it's very soon will be even better equipped to support you on your growth journey. So over the past few months, we've focused on understanding and improving your experience. We realized that as your application and customer base scale, managing issues can become overwhelming. This is where our new capabilities come in place, transforming that maze of issues, if you will, into a well-charted path. So the first screen here is the issue list. And actually, one thing before we delve deeper, because there was a question on that, and I kind of want to make sure that this is that I'm kind of answering that and just make sure that highlight the importance of that. If there is one sort of takeaway from today is that if you're working on a front-end project, I know a lot of you are full stack engineers and using JavaScript, always ensure you have source maps. They let us hone in on a specific line of code, causing the issue, enhancing our ability to group and aggregate errors with the same root cause. So just remember that. The first viewer encounter, as I mentioned, the issue list. So as you can see, I know as your application scale, you'll have many issues here. So the first thing that we're working on and are introducing very shortly is the sort of smart sort, the priority sort. So rather than just showing you things that are last seen, we're going to show you things that actually matter to you. This is a combination of a number of user impacted, more recent event, like 43 minutes ago and 11 minutes ago, etc. Those we predict that you're much likely to engage with. So this is sort of our new smart sort. In internal testing, we've seen that our own engineers prefer that new default sort 3 times over the one we currently have. So we can't wait to bring it to everyone here. The second thing that we've been working on is, we have a lot of powerful search capabilities. However, not a lot of people know them. So what we're introducing right now is what we call search tiles. So you can easily search for things like, assignee, different releases, it's cost to show you, custom tags. Or if you are in your quality sprint, you can easily search for unhandled exceptions. So let me just click on that. And you'll quickly see sort of unhandled exception based on that kind of new ranking. And of course, on the issue list itself, there is wealth of information available to you when you hover. So when you hover, for example, you see different stack frames. And you can even see the source code just when you hover before you even need to make a decision to engage with an issue. So let's say, you're going to click on this one. And as Kotsi, demo, there are a lot of useful information here in this page. I won't sort of repeat on that, but, everything from breadcrumbs to, the stack trace, different tags that are aggregating entire issues and, things that are specific to a specific event. So with that, you can actually make some action. So the first thing you can do, you can actually assign the issue. So, this issue is already assigned, but, you can assign to a different team member or to a team. You can decide to resolve an issue, and you can basically resolve in the next release or current release. So you can click on that, and if new events on the same issue will come back, we will basically notify you. And the new capabilities that we are introducing is archiving. So archiving is not about forgetting an issue. It's more about intelligent monitoring. So you mark an issue as archive, and Sentry will keep a vigilant eye on that issue and bring it back if things become worse. So let's say if you have a connection error or something that you think is not, it's kind of expected to have a low volume of, you can archive in confident, and Sentry will bring it back to your stream and notifications once we see kind of many more events based on our new sort of small algorithm. So that's the new archiving capabilities. Now going back to the stream, if I go back to the stream, I will be able to see all my archive issue here, as well as issues that are escalating, regressed, things that I marked as fixed and now are unfixed, for review, which is essentially our inbox, and unresolved. So we are sort of revamped that top structure. So basically, this was a very, very short kind of sneak peek to our new capabilities to manage issues as your applications scale. We bubble to the top the most important issues by upgrading some of the tools. We're introducing all those things in the next few weeks, and we're eager for your feedback. So how can you engage with us at Sentry? We like to grow and evolve as everybody else. So you can always join our GitHub discussion. Just go to our discussion board, provide feedback, and because we're really taking those things seriously and are iterating on the product. So I just want to thanks everybody for I want to thank Kotsi for the demo, and thanks everybody for joining us with this today. And we'll open up to Q&A.